Well, welcome back. What an incredible day we've had with amazing sessions. And I just want to say thank you to the Community Health Commission of Missouri for that sponsor video. You can check out their session tomorrow. Now, I'm not going to be in front of you long because I want to get right to this next session. It's our final session of the day, and I'm pleased to introduce the Racial Healing and Justice Fund panel, which includes staff members of the Deaconess Foundation and Forward Through Ferguson. Today, they will discuss the successes, lessons learned, and next steps in justice philanthropy to resource local healing and justice initiatives. So I am pleased to welcome them to the stage. Let's give them a round of applause.
Hey, y'all. Okay, now, first of all, welcome. Thank you to you all who's still thugging it out with us at 4 o'clock. If you've been here since 7:30 like me, bless you for being in this space and just coming to the event and being on this journey with us through the heat and through all that the community has been through the last several weeks since the storm, and of course, always. So if you all don't know me, I'm Faybra. My pronouns are she and her. For the last several years, I've served Forward Through Ferguson as the lead racial equity catalyst, and one of my major areas of work at FTF has been the Racial Healing and Justice Fund. I'm also here with FTF's ED and lead strategy catalyst, Miss Annissa. Let's give her a hand. Yes, 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 yes. And then we also have Miss Constance from the Deaconess Foundation and Reverend Bethany. So, yes, period. We have gathered here today amongst
we have a video
amongst our friends.
Yes.
We need to
play the video.
Play a video. We will play the video. Thank you very much. Okay, thank you.
A word from one of our sponsors.
A word from one of our sponsors. Thank you so much to the Community Health Commission of Missouri. Shout out to all of you on their team, particularly Risa. Risa's been a great champion for the Racial Equity Summit historically, herself and her organization. Thank you for sponsoring. Thank you for being a part of our accountability team to make sure that this event continues to stay relevant to the community and that it's also resourced. So we greatly appreciate you. So, as I was saying, the moment that has brought us here today, all right, this year is the 10th year that Forward Through Ferguson has been an independent entity, right? So an independent 501c3 since the commission sunsetted. And we know the moment that brought Forward Through Ferguson into existence was unfortunately the reality, the killing of Mike Brown Jr. in Ferguson, not too far away from here. And Bethany was commissioner. And there's just so much that has happened since then. You know, it was a tragic moment that brought the organization into existence. I would say also shaped some things at Deaconess as well. Our organizations were shaped and shifted around that moment. And then 5 years later, there was a pandemic. And then there were also transitions amongst our staffs and teams and leadership. It just seems like we've been through a lot the last several years. But for every, I think, challenge that we've gone through, there have been so many victories. And so I think the first question that I would like to ask is, what are some of the greatest memories and victories and takeaways that you recall of the pilot since we kicked off the Racial Healing and Justice Fund? And so think about it for a second, but just for the context of the audience, if those of you are not familiar with the Racial Healing and Justice Fund, our organizations, along with the Missouri Foundation for Health and the Robert Wood Johnson Foundation, we really wanted to answer one of those calls to action from the commission report, which was there should be an unrestricted pot of money, an endowment that exists to resource Black-led and community of color-led efforts to heal our community post the uprising. And really, the philanthropy community wasn't necessarily bending over backwards trying to meet that in their own individual organizations, but there was some interest of people who work inside of philanthropy to support it. And so once FTF and Deaconess and MFH had a relationship with a big funder like RWJ, more people inside of local philanthropy said, oh, okay, this is something that we can do now. So that pooled fund kicked off in 2020. And since 2020, there have been 3 grant cycles plus an emergency response cycle in which we have redistributed over $1.5 million to 70 Black and people of color-led projects. Thank you. And, you know, following today and following this year, the plan is for there to be many, many more, but we will need your help. We'll need the help of the people in this room and not only people who are traditional power holders in philanthropy, which is something that we'll talk about in a little bit. So, hopefully gave you a little bit of time to think about what some of your greatest memories and greatest takeaways, and really anybody can start. Greatest memory and takeaway.
I'll go ahead and start because I think out of this team, I'm the baby on the fund crew.
The boss baby.
I actually came into the fund and Forward Through Ferguson in October of 2023.
Yep.
So 1 month before the Racial Equity Summit, but then also as the pilots were kind of revving down, or kind of in the midst of looking at the pilots revving down of those cycles. And for me, what struck me the most is pretty much what has struck me with the summit. What has hit me even since 2015 is that community has been taking care of community. Mm-hmm. And that the whole purpose of the fund was to address the fact that community was taking care of community, but had been locked out of traditional philanthropy. Mm-hmm. And if traditional philanthropy worked, there wouldn't be a necessity for it, right? If they were actually funding and taking care of the issues that they were attempting to address. But meanwhile, you had people who had been spurred, quite a few of them after the killing of Michael, some of them after the killing of George Floyd, mm-hmm. to come forward and say, I'm the answer, and community is the answer, and I want to do it, but they've been locked out again. And so to walk into a space and see how many organizations and individuals and businesses have stepped forward and said, it's me, it's us, and we take care of us, that's what gives me goosebumps whenever I think about the fund, is that it is Black and brown and other taking care of us.
Yeah, thank you. Constance?
I'd say there's many successes, but I believe the bi-state commitment. So the Community Governance Board was made up of people from St. Louis City, St. Louis County, we'll just say within the 7-footprint of Deaconess, which serves 4 counties in Missouri and 3 in Illinois. Mm-hmm. And we can't forget that, and the pandemic taught us, mm-hmm. What happens to our neighbor really impacts and affects our lives. Right. And so it's this effort that we might be living in the city of St. Louis, or we might be living in North County, but what happens in Illinois really impacts and affects us. And we're learning that even through some of the environmental justice crises that we find ourselves in now. Mm-hmm. The other great success is that the fund didn't fund just healing from pain, right. but also joy.
That's right.
And joy as defined by community, right. And when we say community, we mean the communities in which we live in as well, right. and which we are a part of. And as we began to get proposals, though we weren't the direct project managers on the front end, it inspired traditional philanthropy. And so I love the fact that there's a lot of stories of joy and dollars that went out to really source healing at that joyful space.
I'm glad we went in this order because what I was thinking of was a specific story to tell. So I remember sitting, listening to an experience of a young farmer. I believe it was a farming intervention or a farming gift to the world. And what I heard the sister say was, I was able through the pandemic to sustain myself, to pay myself a living wage, to be able to balance myself and my family, and that was okay. And I was able from that point to launch the dream that I had had for so long, but I had never been believed, and so many different obstacles had been put in the way from a philanthropic expectation.
Right.
That I was believed, and to take care of me financially wasn't seen as a negative, but a foundational thing that I needed to do. And to see how she looked saying it, and how the room nodded in affirmation and not confusion, that is an example of why it means a lot to me to see the direct impact on people to be believed and trusted with vision and dream and money that is not ours to give.
Right. Thank you. Yeah, I think to tag on to that, and I know this exact person that you're speaking
Okay,
of.
yep.
That was Miss Janet.
Yes.
That was just Miss Janet. Rustic Roots
Yes.
Sanctuary, not too far from here in Lake St. Louis. Please support Rustic Roots. Spanish Lake, not Lake St. Louis. Spanish Lake.
Spanish Lake, yeah, that's a different,
See what I
that's a
did
different
there?
lake.
My
Spanish
brain was
Lake.
like, Spanish Lake, not Lake St. Louis. Okay. Okay. So, Ms. Janet and a few others, and this is, my reflection of a success too, said to us, hey, this Racial Healing and Justice Fund grant was actually the first one I've ever received.
Period.
So for people who I've known in the community for a long time, who've just been feeding people, clothing people, stuffing backpacks before the first week of school, giving out diapers and food to young mothers and helping young mothers learn to do safe sleep, had just been doing that forever with no funding. They had been funding it completely on their own. For them to say to me like, hey, something that you did helped my organization get their first grant, and we made it through the last 2 years because of it, I feel like was a huge honor. And so I just really, really thankful for the love that we received and also the accountability that we've received from the community too. One of the biggest criticisms of, the grant cycles during the pilot was that, oh man, it took so long for me to hear back. And yes, it did take a while to hear back. And another thing that I am proud of is that the reason for that is because the community made the decisions about the grants. So the Community Governance Board, it was a group of about 17 people over the 3-year time period. It was completely within their power to review all the applications, and they read every single application. So over the span of the 3 grant cycles, they review well over 400 applications. And so for that small amount of people to read every single profile, view every single video, a supplemental material, I think was a huge deal. And they put a lot of thought and effort into, okay, how can we resource as many incredible projects as possible? And the thing that they emphasized and overemphasized is that every single application that they read was worthy of funding. And they believed that every single one needed to be funded. And so just so the group knows, one of the things that we found when we were evaluating the pilot of the fund is that we received well over $30 million of requests for funding. So over about 500 solid applications in that 3.5 years, there was about $30 million of requests, and all of them could have very well been funded by this group.
And all of them had never, I won't say never, but the majority of them had never had success in traditional philanthropy or grant making, right?
Yeah.
These are people that were doing the work, but because of whatever matrix had been decided, they were deemed not to be able to access capital to continue this work that is actually addressing need, but also taking care of children, taking care of maternal Black health, making sure that community had what it needed. So it wasn't always an answer to a tragedy. Sometimes it was just filling a spot that community needed that had not been answered, but they recognized.
And there were also groups that were functioning as like small-scale intermediaries, so
Right.
working to help people communicate between each other and providing technical assistance to people in their own community, in their own space. So it could be that maybe they ran one sort of direct service thing, but a lot of what they did was organize people and connect people to resources. There were several examples of that as well. So this process was new space. I said that before. We kind of went somewhere where it felt like the local philanthropy community had not gone before, in the sense that this Racial Healing and Justice Fund was explicitly set to resource racial justice work and also people who were self-defined healers and restorative justice kind of practitioners or stewards of justice and healing. And this also happened amidst transitions, like in our organizations. There were shifts of like presidents and CEOs. You all were new, like into the organizations, not new into the work, as all this was happening. And, you know, I guess a personal question, like how did you acclimate into this, and how did the fund play a role in you like really thinking about what it means to be a leader in philanthropy?
I want to take that one. So I will say that there is a distinct difference in the believability of a person who presents male with authority and dresses in a business motif, if you will, than my representation coming into a very powerful spot because of the work done, because of the valleys dug by my predecessor, Reverend Dr. Starsky Wilson, who I love and respect. I got to inherit both the beauty of work I didn't have to redirect. I just fell right in with my colleague Constance as a gift, as one of the many team members that I still work with. There's a gift there, but to the external environment, I led with my own voice, but my voice was not an echo of anybody else's. And it's very difficult for this community to receive the one Black leader, period. And so the Racial Healing and Justice Fund actually was my very first intentional, out of all the things we could have picked, I picked wanting to socialize with my colleagues in the field this particular potential of what it was and what it could belong to, and the power differential that could finally shift the way we keep talking about and writing about and promising. And the truth is, on this stage, no matter who's watching, I know God's watching, that it cost me some relationships, that there's some doors closed now because of the way with which I was adamant about shared power and a different approach. I took on centered whiteness in a couple of spaces where the questions asked were not about the quality of life, the impact of the funds. It was about, why was I not briefed enough? Why did you not come to me enough? Why was I not centered during the pandemic and two uprisings that had happened during the time? So, you know, I'm being honest about that. I'm also being honest about a learning that I love, the mutuality that those who sat at tables to want to review beautiful, amazing applications, we have the same issue. We have the same issue. So for a second, it felt like community and philanthropy within that sense of like assuming everything that comes through our doors is worthy. It's not about worthiness. It is about the piece of the pie and making strong decisions.
Right.
We shared that for a second of like, oh, this is what it feels like. Yeah, that is a little bit more difficult or emotional or connected than we understood. So there's the ick part and there's the aha part from my experience.
Thank you.
I think that, well, for one, you know, the whole idea of the fund came out of the Ferguson Commission report. So Starsky did a heavy lift at Deaconess, but those Ferguson commissioners' community said, this is something because what we have done does not work, it has to be different. And so you were part of that prophetic voice in the first place. This is a seed that you planted in community before we even dreamed that it could happen. So, thank you. For me, I have seen the attempt to co-opt what community says this fund should be. The attempt to say that, well, if you guys did it this way, you would have more support for it, and we could get behind it. But the truth of the matter is you weren't behind it in the first place. Because if you were, it wouldn't have to have been created. I mean, that's what it is, though, right?
Okay.
If community, society, the St. Louis region was doing what it needed to do for each other, the fund wouldn't have had to be created. Michael wouldn't even be dead.
Right. Right.
But this came out of a voice from community that said, what has happened lets us know that we have to be different and we have to move differently. And in my short time of being around the fund, and like I said, I'm the baby of the group, I have had to lean very heavily on these three to make sure that I am very, very clear that there does not have to be compromise against what community has said needs to happen, and that this fund can be what it needs to be. However, the organizations and the entities that we thought maybe should be the perpetuators of this fund, the keepers of this fund, that's not who it's going to be. As always, it's going to be community, and we've seen it even with the summit. We've seen who has come to us. We see who raised voice and said, I don't care what anybody else says, I'm coming and we're supporting you. And that's what I believe is going to happen with the fund as we move into it being an endowed and perpetual fund. That community is going to be the one to keep it. It's not going to be corporations. I hope that some foundations come, but it's probably going to be the foundations that did not fracture relationship with you, that said, yes, Bethany, we want to come along with what Deaconess is doing and be different.
Right.
And they're out there.
Yes.
And they're out there.
They are out
And there actually may be some corporations, okay? Let's put that out there, because there are some mid-sized businesses and even some larger corporations that have risen to the occasion, since now with all of the attacks on DEI and the attacks on all of the work that has been done to try to create systems of inclusion, there are some entities that are like, you know what? Maybe we should.
I think that we are in the midst
So
of a
let's be
gigantic
hopeful.
wake-up call.
Giant
Yet again,
wake-up call,
But the
yes.
question is, are people going to go back to sleep?
I think that's a good point, because it has to be sustained investment. So,
Exactly.
Sure, there was a call in the report, laid dormant, unfunded.
Right.
And what happened here is similar to what we saw happen across the country
Yes.
after the killing of George Floyd. So there were the platitudes, and there were the statements of Black Lives Matter, and we're going to fund and show and put some money up.
Yeah.
But at what cost?
Right.
We had to lose another Black man for people to actually turn dollars over.
Right.
So, not
they
to
didn't
miss the
sustain it.
moment,
No.
Right.
that's when this fund was actually funded
Right.
in the
Right.
St. Louis region.
Right. Because the call came
Because
when?
the call came.
In
and
2015.
In 2015.
15. But the money didn't come until
2020.
George Floyd, okay?
2020, 2021, yep.
And
Yep.
that's when there were foundations and leaders, so Deaconess Foundation, and at the time, Bob Hughes at Missouri Foundation for Health. And through relationship with perhaps the current leader there now, Robert Wood Johnson Foundation, were committed and trusted local foundations here in the region.
Right.
So said, we have $1 million for you all to get the fund off the ground.
Right.
And we are grateful that regional philanthropic organizations and foundations answered the call at that time.
Right.
But the call should have been answered in 2015. So when we talk about meeting the moment, we have to talk about sustainability. And not just because it makes us feel good and it's charitable.
Right.
Yeah.
Or guilt money
Guilt money.
only.
Yes, yes,
Because we'll take the guilt money.
We'll take the guilt money, but the whole thing is like, I need you to stay guilty.
Yeah, and then there's also something
Accountable.
about preparedness, which we did not discuss this, so please feel free to say no comment if you would not like to comment on this, you all. But, you know, there was a major tornado that devastated the city. There are still people who are displaced from their homes, who are trying to have their homes repaired, who are still, you know, relying on the support of folks in the community and Black-led organizations to help resource them. And the community has asked very clearly that the RAM settlement be utilized as a means of support because we have money. The city has money for certain things. There was a possibility of exploring if the RAM settlement could resource the Racial and Justice
Right.
Fund so that it could act as a fund that would resource Black-led organizations who have a historical pattern of providing immediate assistance to Black communities when a tragedy happens. So we didn't know climate change was going to climate change, but we knew that because of the history of St. Louis, one event could completely devastate a neighborhood and a community,
Right.
whether it's a storm, a fire, violence, a big act of violence. These are all things that have actually happened here. And so we didn't know in 2023 that a tornado, that climate change was going to devastate the city, but we did know that there should be some preparedness. And so just saying that to say this fund is keeping itself 10 toes down. And when we say community, let's be clear about who we're talking about. We're talking about Black and brown people in the city and in the county, particularly north of Del Mar and on the east side. We're talking about queer folks. We're talking about non-binary, gender fluid folks. We're talking about people who are people of the global majority and of the rising majority who locally have been intentionally and unintentionally under-resourced and neglected by the systems. And I feel that sometimes when we talk about community, we're talking about it in generic terms. So I just want to say to the people here, this is how we define community. And this fund is wanting to stay accountable to its original purpose to resource the people, the organizations, and the projects that are healing and helping people out right now. The Community Foundation, the St. Louis Community Foundation, actually has some very interesting data about what funding habits kind of look like locally. They found this with the last 2 Give Days. It is still true that Black-led organizations, and particularly those that are also led by women and by queer people, receive not even 0.5% of funding from philanthropy, from local philanthropy and from national philanthropy. And that's a big deal here with a state and a city that doesn't actually spend its budget on human services. So when you add all those things, all that history and all those things kind of stacked together, it makes it feel somewhat urgent that safe space is set, that is structural, and that is also resourced. So can we talk a little bit about some of our plan to continue the fund? Is there anything you'd like to sprinkle off to the audience?
The thing I want to sprinkle off is that the fund will continue. We've spent a lot of time with Deaconess brainstorming how to continue the fund. We're going to be asking for money. I'm going to tell y'all right now, we're asking for money. There will be a cycle coming up. It will be small, but at the same time, it's something that has to happen in order just to get the ball rolling. But what I want to discuss is the fact that with the cycle, with the funding continuing, it has to become endowed. It can no longer be a pilot. It has to truly be something that has a sense of permanence. which means that the structure will be different. But that also means that with that permanence and having a structure that is different, we'll be able to examine, shift accordingly, and bring people under the umbrella. The idea is that we have so many people that have received funding and got the ball going, and then the pilot ended. And so now what happens? So can we go back and work with them again and give them more resource, but then also figure out how to bring more people in as the endowment continues? This has been probably one of the biggest challenges I've ever tried to knuckle my head around.
Yeah.
And I will say that Faybra has been pushing me forward, even when I feel like maybe it can't happen, just because the conversations I've had being new to the space has been very much like, well, you all are doing what X, Y, and Z do. Why can't you just combine? Because we're not doing the same thing that other people are doing. We are actually putting resource behind those individuals who are answering the calls to action of the Ferguson Commission. Opportunity to thrive, youth at the center, justice for all, and racial equity. If you go and look through those calls to action, somebody in the Racial Healing and Justice Fund grantee pool is doing that work. Over 500 people submitted worthy applications, and we had $1 million or so to give them.
Yeah.
$30 million of recommendation. If I can get my hands on $5 million just to start, if I can get my hands on $10 million just to start,
Right.
I'll take the $1 million again. But we see what happens with the $1 million. We have to close the cycle down and come back and regroup.
Yeah.
So what happens if community says, I will give $10 a month from an individual person? Or a business says, I will tithe part of my business earnings to this fund because I know what happened when I needed a helping hand. Right. I know as a Black business owner, I know as a Black parent what community has done for me. But it has to be done with the understanding that if we do this, we can't expect that you're going to get an annual report saying, we fed 500 babies, crime down by 20%, and in addition to that, we solved all of our racial problems in the St. Louis region.
Right. Yeah.
We are working with systemic racism that goes back to even before the city of St. Louis was founded.
Right.
Enslaved people were brought to what we call St. Louis before St. Louis was even named St. Louis as a fur trading area. 500 slaves were brought here to work in the lead mines before St. Louis was a fur trading center. So if we go back that far and we built our commerce, every type of structure that we have in community on the bodies of Black and brown people, because Native Americans were also brought here from other places, enslaved to work in those mines and to build commerce.
That's right.
If we know that we have built everything that we hold dear in this community that we now call St. Louis off of the bodies of Black and brown, queer people, Asian people, community people who historically have always taken care of each other, why then can't we create a fund to undo what we did on their backs? Why can't we do what's necessary to feed children, to make sure that Black women don't die when they are pregnant, to make sure that someone has the seed for a business, a bookstore, or a farm that is feeding all of us? Why can't we have the ability to source those funds without questioning whether or not they can do it?
Yeah.
Because they don't have the 501c3 just so, which costs a lot of money to get up and going. Or they don't have the governance model that you're used to seeing because maybe it's a mom and pop situation that got started. So if we're saying that we're going to be different and if we're really going to heal ourselves, we've talked about healing all day long. And I thank Prentice for it. We've talked about healing the core, and everyone has said that this has been wonderful and we have felt good about what we're doing. But are you willing to fight enough to make this fund what it should be to really do some healing? We were asked, do you want to change the name? Do you still want to call it the Racial Healing and Justice Fund? But the whole thing is we are healing people because of what has been done to them because of their race. In addition, we are working with people who are healing the rights, who are healing the wrongs that have been done to them by society, by policing, by government, by church, by their neighbors. So no, we're not going to change the name. It is what it is. And in this day and time, with what we're dealing with societally, we're in system failure. It can't be a program. It can't be another thing that makes people feel good as they walk out and say, we really did something. It has to be sustainable. It has to be hard work. And so what we're here talking about right now is the launch of us going into community. And I'm going to have my phone and my iPad. Somebody come and scan me. Come and talk to me about what you want to do to help us get this fund up and going.
Yeah.
What are you willing to contribute? What relationships can you help us establish? Because we've already lost people who want to tell us what to do as opposed to working with us to do what needs to be done.
Can I say right there, Annissa, that it's such a good point to ask the oppressor to give you funding for your freedom.
Right.
Makes
Give me my
no
papers,
sense.
please.
Right. It makes absolutely no sense.
And so I want to say it this way. There are some philanthropic organizations that are trying hard to uproot themselves from their historical places and all of that.
Yes,
I understand that. But it's not going to be fast enough for the need.
It is not.
And here's the truth. If you didn't know about philanthropy, and you probably do, so lean in just in case you don't.
Lean
Here's the
in.
secret about it. What's really good about philanthropy is an episodic need or a pendulum swing.
Right.
Okay, so newsflash. We know where we're at right now. We know the condition of the country, but we also knew the last 10 years of the country. We know both, right? And so that pendulum is going to swing again. And just like, unfortunately, we wanted it 5 years earlier, but when that flashpoint came, we had a fund and it was ready.
Right.
We're going to need this for the pendulum swing that is going to happen again because we're forging the pendulum swing right now. That's why we're here. That's why we're keeping it alive. But philanthropy cannot be. It will never
be that
meet up
full
to the
answer.
expectations. It cannot. So think of it like we're not excluding ourselves. We're not holding ourselves accountable for sure, but we're episodic and we're pendulum swing moments. If we think about it in that way, then it leaves room and capacity for a community to fuel, individuals to fuel, $1 at a time. We remember, all of us know about layaway. Most of us know about layaway.
Klarna.
Right? I think we need to remind ourselves
Yeah.
of the tools that we had in a segregated society when we fueled our own because we understood that something else wasn't coming, and we had our own land and we purchased our own stuff in that time. This is the creativity.
Yeah.
Like, pull philanthropy out of this benevolent something, and we remind ourselves who we've always been.
So let's think about it. You know, I'm preacher's daughter. Come on, Pastor. So, you know, my congregation has the poor steward, the ministry of kindness. Okay. And so people put money into that, so we're ready. So when there's a need, the money is there. And that's what we're talking about.
Anticipating.
You anticipate. If you are already ready, you don't have to get ready.
That's what they said.
Tornado is teaching us
The
that.
tornado has taught us
Nature
that.
is talking.
Nature is talking.
East St. Louis has been preaching this.
And
so I don't know why we're surprised.
And so
in the
I
loop,
want to say,
honestly.
you got two East Side people right here.
Okay, East Side.
So like we see
Three.
three out of four. So like we have seen what happens when you ignore large areas of people and then you expect it just to change because you come and do one thing. It has to be a complete shift of mindset. It has to be a complete investment, and it has to be sustainable.
Sustainable. Thank
So-
you for listening.
That's the word of the day,
My initial
sustainable.
question was about what can we look forward to the update for the fund. Thank you.
Okay.
And
Sorry, I got on
just
roll.
want to
Got on a roll.
let me make sure people are following the conversation. So one of the decisions that has been made is that Forward Through Ferguson will administrate the Racial Healing and Justice Fund. Now, this is different from the pilot because historically the Deaconess Foundation was our fiscal sponsor. Now FTF was the baby, was the toddler, and now FTF is growing up into the funder, the administration of the fund. That's one big change. Second change is
To
that,
be celebrated.
Yeah, I know.
So
Okay,
I want to
period.
say
Say that.
philanthropy When we talk about
Yes.
community capacity building,
Yeah.
That's what this is,
this
right?
is an
what this
example
is.
That's exactly
thereof,
what this is.
Right?
Yeah.
So you
In practice.
seed, you pilot, such great success from the pilot. And we've been talking beyond the pilot, right? And so this is what it looks like in real time for us to do the hard, and shout out to Risa at the last session I was in, heart work. And it has to be in relationship. And so you can't just do capacity building and do trainings and do technical
No.
assistance and say you did a thing.
Right.
There has to be mentoring.
There has to be mentoring and care and love.
And not neutrality, and not calling it conflict of interest
Mm-hmm.
when you are going in to be arm in arm with people. That is not conflict of interest.
So
I'm sorry.
what I want to say is,
These, I preacher
ahead.
and preacher's daughter.
No, go.
So, so I think
Yeah.
that's to be celebrated, that it is a transition of the fund from Deaconess Foundation to Forward Through Ferguson.
I want to really lean into the mentorship and the capacity building component of it, though. So you have a funder who is willing to have relationship with an organization as we built up capacity. And one of the things that happened when I came on board is that there was a pause
Yeah.
to allow me to get my hands around and decide, do you really want to take this into Forward Through Ferguson?
Yeah.
And if you do, okay, let's go. So it's coming to Forward Through Ferguson. Previously, I think a lot of people thought it was at Forward Through Ferguson. We were the project managers.
Right. People thought
We were the project managers, and Deaconess was like, okay, y'all, so this is, but they taught us what we needed to do
Yeah.
in order for it to come to us. So now it is coming to us, and we will be the funder, but with relationship
Yeah.
and with different governance models slightly,
Yeah.
every other year of funding as
Sure.
opposed to every cycle.
Right.
But we feel good about our framework.
Yeah.
We feel good about the fact that we know that if we have to pause and readjust, we have that framework, we have that understanding, but at the same time, we feel good about the fact that we're going to do it.
Yeah.
And it's going to be done by Forward Through Ferguson.
Amen.
Because a funder taught us how to become a funder.
Right. Another thing that
And thank you.
is slightly changing, well, not slightly, I think this is a significant change to share, is that originally, and I think maybe this gives a little bit of context to some of the comments that you all heard, is that originally this pooled fund was mostly funded by the local philanthropy community with one national funder. What will be different is that we're also opening the resource development of the fund so that individual people from the community, as well as giving circles and other groups of people who just like what this fund is, can contribute. That is actually a big difference, because as we've learned, that philanthropy cannot just be held by the status quo, and that local philanthropy and local funders, they do good things, and they're not subject matter experts of racial healing or justice. So if we want to continue to be with the community, then we also have to be vulnerable and ask the community for support as well. And so that may mean donations, but it also may mean volunteering and volunteering your time, because we are planning to have many more events, and you will go to one hopefully this afternoon, and we're going to let you all go in a few minutes, where you can see the grantees and be in a space with them, and that we can all continue to be in a spirit of community together. So those are some of the major changes. Some of the
They're
things
right
that will
behind
not
you guys.
change. The name of this fund will not change, okay? The Racial Healing and Justice Fund is here to stay, so that's one thing. Another thing that won't change is that there will continue to be an accountability board of community people who are elected, who are not affiliated with Forward Through Ferguson, who will assist with the decision-making about who gets funded in every grant cycle in the future. We think that that is very important for the community to be the holders of decision-making for who gets funded, okay? And then, yeah, I think those are the things that will not
Those
change.
are the major things. And it's a
Yes.
lot, but
Yes.
we're working
Yes,
on
yes,
something
yes.
that people can see tangibly that spells out this change
Yeah.
as it comes to Forward Through Ferguson, and also how you can get involved.
Amen.
Amen.
I think we did it.
I think we did it.
So, where's Dr. April? With that, I have a call to action for you all. Before you leave this summit today, please go out to the expo hall and meet the grantees that are there and support what they're doing and learn how you can plug in to all of the things that they are trying to do. We have some really incredible grantees that are doing a lot for our community, and as we mentioned, they're doing it with way less than even half of what their counterparts have from a resource standpoint. So please go out and support the community, see what folks are doing, and also continue to take care of yourselves. And I hope that we will see you back here tomorrow. Which is a very special day tomorrow. So thank you.
Thank you.
Well, I was gonna say, let's say thank you to the panel and give them a round of applause, but y'all already did that, so that's awesome, that's awesome. I just wanna reiterate something that I heard time and time again from this panel, but it just is an echo from this morning with Prentice Hemphill, and Prentice talked about, because it hit me real hard, the collective lesson. And I think what we are witnessing here is the collective lessons. Like they are learning the lessons so that they can then share with the community, which they just did. So we see some modeling right here, right?
Yeah.
And so with that being said, if you go back to what I said earlier about that core work, right? This is all core work. When we face opposition and resistance, that's really helping to strengthen our core, our core beliefs, our core values, our core integrity, all of those things. And so with that, former high school English teacher here, so you got homework, because that's what I do. Yes. I'm going to encourage you to take the invitation to take this independent learning opportunity where you practice, 30 seconds, just practicing, engaging, and activating your core. That's it. Try that like 30 seconds a day. You can increase it every day if you'd like, but that will strengthen your core and help you to get the abs that I was trying to get when I asked my niece to help me without the labor, because I really am sore. Anyway, so let me give a few reminders and then I'm gonna let you go. The reminders, which Faybra has already mentioned, the Racial Healing and Justice Fund Expo will take place from now until 7 p.m. in the 2 Hill lobby. Please join us and meet the grantees and learn about their work, because it's stellar. It really is. It's mind-blowing. Also, don't forget to take the session surveys in the Hova app. Hoover app?
Yeah, you got it.
Hoover.
Yes,
Hoover.
yes.
Not to be confused with Jay-Z, Hova. Right. In the Hoover app. And then last but not least, I'm gonna see you tomorrow. I will continue to be the hostess with the mostest, and tomorrow morning breakfast will take place from 7:30 to 9 a.m., and the open plenary starts promptly at 9 a.m.
Okay.
Thank you so much. Have a great one.
Thank you all.
Thank you, Dr. April.